Last year, my sister, the golden child of our family, did something I never saw coming. One day after being handed the reins of our company, she fired me without warning. No gratitude, no acknowledgement of the years I had spent building and nurturing the business. The message was simple. Your role has been dissolved. It felt like a punch in the gut, especially since it had all been a carefully planned ambush. Everyone expected me to walk away quietly, but they missed one crucial detail. A tiny clause I fought to include in the original incorporation agreement. A clause I had personally fought for more than a decade ago. And now, that very clause is costing them everything. The irony? They still haven't realized that I'm the one who set this chain of events in motion. But let me back up. It all started like any other Thursday morning. I was 38, heading into the firm's headquarters in Chicago's West Loop. My heels clicked against the polished concrete floors, and I felt strangely calm. I had expected a routine quarterly strategy meeting. Nothing flashy. I greeted the front desk, passed through security, and entered the glass-walled conference room. The moment I stepped inside, I froze. Gold and ivory balloons had been arranged into an arch. Lilies, my mother's signature flower, lined the table. Cupcakes and champagne stood near the wall, and a banner hung proudly, celebrating new leadership. My stomach dropped. I could feel the weight of everything shifting. Around the table sat my parents, our CFO, the legal counsel, and board members. Some of them smiled at me, while others avoided my gaze. And then, I saw her. Isla, my older sister, stood at the front, her hair slicked back, and her cream-colored blazer tailored like armor. She wore a smirk that looked like she'd just won an Oscar. "Mirror," my mother said too brightly. "So glad you could make it." I stared at her in stunned silence. "I had scheduled this meeting," I replied, barely managing to keep my voice steady. Then my father stood up. "Today marks a new chapter," he announced. "We're proud to announce Isla as CEO, effective immediately." The room erupted in applause, but I couldn't join them. I stood there, frozen, somewhere between humiliation and disbelief. No one had bothered to tell me. Not a whisper. Not even a forwarded calendar invite. Isla, across the room, was basking in the glow of the celebration, soaking up the spotlight like it was always meant for her. I didn't clap. I couldn't. My hands remained at my sides as I locked eyes with her, searching for any sign of remorse. But there was nothing. She didn't even look my way. Isla turned to the board and began speaking, her words smooth and rehearsed. "I believe it's time to streamline leadership and reposition the firm for long-term innovation." I didn't even hear the rest. My ears were buzzing. Alicia, our HR director, approached me quietly with a folder in hand. I didn't need to look at it to know what it contained. My name was typed across the top, followed by the word termination, stamped like a wound on my soul. My breath caught in my throat. I glanced at my parents. They couldn't meet my eyes. Isla walked toward me, her heels clicking on the floor like punctuation to this horrible moment. She leaned in close and whispered, "It's not personal, Mira. You've just outgrown your role." Outgrown? I had built this company from the ground up. I co-signed the first lease. I missed my own engagement party to save the firm from a supplier dispute. I skipped birthdays, holidays, and even Grandpa's funeral because someone had to show up, and that someone had always been me. Now, suddenly, I was told I had outgrown it. I took the folder, barely glancing at the severance, paperwork inside, and walked out as the applause continued. The hallway stretched out before me, endless. My heels echoed too loudly, the silence too sharp. I caught a glimpse of Isla near the elevator. "You couldn't even tell me privately?" I asked, my voice calm but cutting. She didn't flinch. "This is business, Mara, she said coldly. You always made it personal. When I swiped my badge to enter my office, the light turned red. Access denied. A young assistant, one I had mentored, passed by carrying a box in her arms. My box. Packed. My framed photo with Mom from our first product launch. My boss lady. In progress mug. My walnut pen. The one Dad gave me when we signed the incorporation papers. It was all gone. It was as though they'd planned this all along. I stepped outside, and the harsh sunlight hit me. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel. I didn't cry, at least not then. Chicago's traffic blurred past the windows, and I was home, before noon. The kitchen was eerily quiet. The coffee machine blinked 11:12 a.m. The same day, a new reality. I unpacked the box slowly. My fingers lingered over the walnut pen, engraved with ML for Mara Langston. You're the future, Dad had said to me once. I sat at the table, clutching it, and then the tears came, quick and sharp, just as private as the pain I'd been hiding. Then, my phone buzzed with a notification. Langston Group names first female CEO. A legacy continues. Legacy? I was that legacy. I reached into the box for a tissue, my hand brushing against something hidden under the cardboard flap. It was an envelope, plain, but with my name written in neat, tidy script. I hadn't seen it before. I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was thick embossed paper bearing our law firm's letterhead. It wasn't severance paperwork. It was a notarized contract, dated 4 years ago. The night Isla came to my apartment, her face a mix of panic and desperation, telling me we were about to miss payroll and lose our biggest client, I couldn't help but think back. I thought about the late-night drive to Evanston, to the lawyer she trusted, and the way I wired $250,000 to keep the company afloat. That was my safety net, my secret weapon. A 10% non-dilutable stake in Langston Group that would only be activated if I ever signed a resignation letter, a resignation I never gave. I remember smiling through my tears that night. They had no idea that I still controlled the boardroom. They had no idea that I still owned the table they sat around. They thought they could throw me out like a disgruntled intern. They thought I had forgotten that crucial document. They assumed I was the same loyal daughter, the one who sacrificed so much and overlooked everything for the sake of family. But what they didn't count on was that I had never forgotten. They had counted on my silence. But that was over. My thumb ran over the notary seal, the ink still fresh in my memory, and my pulse settled. This wasn't just about business decisions anymore. This was personal. They weren't pushing me out. They were trying to rewrite the narrative of my life. But I wouldn't let them. I grabbed my keys, my mind already in motion. The garage door creaked open, letting in the thick, muggy air of late spring. Dust swirled in the beams of sunlight as I began pulling box after box from the shelves. Years of tax returns, hard drives, bank statements, and shipping receipts. Then I found it. A navy folder marked 2019 Lala Emergency. Inside, I found printed emails, wire transfer receipts, and even a scanned copy of the confirmation from the wire transfer. There was a flash drive taped inside the cover. I plugged it into my laptop, the sound of the keys clicking a familiar comfort. One file. I clicked play. Isla's voice filled the room, shaky, unsure. Mara, I don't know how to thank you. If I ever forget this, I shouldn't be in charge of anything. I played it again. This time I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I just focused. This wasn't heartbreak. This was strategy. I grabbed the contract, the file, and my laptop, packing everything into a leather tote my dad had given me when we closed our first big deal together. Then I left. I wasn't about to sit in my kitchen, stewing in betrayal. I needed a neutral space, somewhere to think, to recalibrate. I drove to a quiet cafe nestled between a bookstore and a real estate office. I ordered green tea and took a booth at the back, setting up my laptop. I began gathering every piece of evidence I had ever left behind. Marketing decks I had edited, payroll reports I'd personally approved, investment memos with my notes, screenshots, folder structures, audio backups. The more I gathered, the more I realized this wasn't about mourning anymore. It was about building a case. They thought I would fold. They thought I was still the version of Mira who apologized for being too much, for taking up space. But I was done apologizing. Then my inbox pinged. The subject line read, "I don't agree with what they did to you. We should talk. Clark." Clark Marino, our longtime accountant. Quiet, meticulous, and invisible in the boardroom. But he saw everything. I didn't hesitate. I replied. An hour later, I was walking down a quiet stretch of Lincoln Avenue, dusk, settling over the streets like dust. Clark's building was old, wedged between a fitness studio and a dry cleaner, frozen in time. He opened the door after 2 knocks, his posture slouched, his soft eyes tired, like he carried the weight of secrets. "I'm glad you came," he said, leading me inside. The living room smelled faintly of burnt coffee and laundry detergent. He gestured to a table stacked with USB drives and folders. "They told me to delete everything," he said. "Board minutes, your voting rights, ownership records." My stomach twisted. "They wanted me to erase you," he continued. I stayed quiet, letting his words sink in. Then he opened his laptop and clicked a folder labeled "Not Forgotten." "They offered me a bonus if I stayed quiet," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I figured I'd stay quiet. I'm just the accountant, after all. He pressed play. Isla's voice filled the room. She's never meant to last. She's emotional dead weight. I didn't blink, though I felt the heat rise in my chest. The next recording was my mother. "We need someone more polished, presentable, reliable, not someone who disappears." It hit me like a punch to the gut. I wasn't just absent. I had been taking care of Blake, my partner, who had been fighting stage 2 lymphoma. I had kept the books running remotely, answering emails during his chemo sessions. And they knew it. I didn't cry. Not because I didn't feel the sting of betrayal, but because I knew exactly what I had to do next. The time for trust had passed. I looked at Clark, my voice steady. "Did they all sign off on this?" He nodded. "Your dad hesitated, but Isla and your mom pushed hard." He didn't resist. For long, I stood up, pacing, each step deliberate, my mind sharpening with every movement. "And the originals?" I asked. Clark nodded again. "I kept everything. Guilt, I guess. Fear." I shook my head. "I'm not here to punish you, Clark. I'm here to fix what they buried." He handed me the USB drives. "There's one more thing," he said, his voice low. "The retreat," he continued. "The one you skipped." A chill ran down my spine. That was when it started. They had used my absence as an excuse to paint me as disengaged, unreliable. A memory flashed in my mind. Me sitting in the hospital room, feeding Blake broth while his skin grew pale from another failed round of chemo. I remembered silencing my phone, ignoring the messages about mandatory team building while my colleagues posted selfies from a luxury spa. When I returned, no one said a word, but half of my projects had been reassigned. No explanation, just fake, smiles and closed doors. I looked at Clark. "You've done enough. Thank you." He shrugged, his expression one of resignation. "I'll deny it if they come for me." "You won't have to," I said, my voice calm. "I'm not going through the courts." Not yet. Back home, I poured myself a glass of water and sat at the kitchen island, the same counter where I once signed loan forms to save this family. I plugged in my encrypted drive, copied over the files, and labeled the new folder Phoenix. Then, I reopened my LinkedIn. It had been dormant for nearly 6 years, another sacrifice to keep up the facade of loyalty. Within minutes of reactivating it, the messages started flooding in. But one stopped me cold. "Hey, stranger. Still got that spark? I may have a proposition." Lyle Parkson. Lyle had quietly left our firm years ago. No drama, no big farewell, just a nod and a handshake. He was the only person who ever saw me, not the younger daughter, not the placeholder, but me. His message continued. "I always knew who actually brokered those vendor deals. Let's build something that's yours this time. Name on the door. Full partner. Come talk." 2 days later, I found myself standing in front of a sleek glass building in River North. Its mirrored windows reflected the morning light, the lobby smelling of cedar, citrus, and espresso. Not the stale legacy I'd left behind. I caught my reflection in the elevator doors. For the first time in weeks, I didn't look erased. I looked ready. Lyle greeted me with a hug that was warm but professional. "There she is," he said with a grin. "The ghost they tried to bury." He introduced me to his leadership team, people who met my eyes, asked real questions, and didn't pretend I was invisible. We were seated in a well-lit conference room when he quietly slid a folder across the polished table. "No pressure," he said, his tone calm. "We know you've got things to sort out. Take your time." Later that night, back home, I revisited the USB drive Clark had given me. One file made my stomach drop. Bridge grant, terms, signed, PPL. I vaguely remembered that deal, a rushed agreement whispered about after it had already been finalized. I hadn't seen the contract before. I opened the document, and my pulse quickened. There it was. My name, my signature. But I had never signed it. Pulled out an old notebook, one I used for grocery lists and travel packing, and compared handwriting. The slant, the curves. It wasn't mine. It was Callista's. My sister had signed my name without telling me, bold, reckless, and unmistakable. She didn't even mimic the loop I always add to my lowercase g. Staring at the screen, I felt my chest tighten. My father used to say, "In business and in family, your word is everything." What would he say now? I printed the document. The printer hummed as each sheet fed through, the truth emerging in ink and silence. I placed it into an envelope and carefully labeled it. To Illinois Office of Business, Conduct Confidential, Immediate Review. They had pushed me aside, but I wasn't just coming back. I was bringing the receipts. This wasn't just about settling a score anymore. It was about pulling the rug out from under the house of lies they'd built. I sealed the envelope and stood in my quiet apartment, the silence around me wrapping like armor. "They want someone more polished," I whispered. "Let's see how she handles a spotlight." I sat at my desk, opened LinkedIn, and hit reactivate. The notifications came quickly. Recruiters, old colleagues, forgotten connections. But one stood, out Lyle Parkson. No professional language this time. Just, "Hey, stranger. Still got that fire? Let's talk." A few hours later, I was at the Cook County Clerk's office. A woman behind plexiglass slid a notarized revocation document toward me. "All set," she said, tapping the embossed seal. "Effective immediately." I tucked the papers into my leather folio. As I turned to leave, she asked, "You sure this won't stir anything up?" I didn't even glance back. "Oh," I said. "I'm counting on it." Outside, the gray haze over Chicago had lifted. Sunlight gleamed off windows and puddles. But something in me had shifted. Quiet, steady, unshakable. Back home, I made a strong black coffee and opened my laptop. I clicked through old folders until I found one. Mom phone. Sync to 209. Expecting. Random backups. I stumbled on a 2-minute voice recording. It had auto-synced years ago when I helped Mom set up a new phone. The timestamp? 3 days before the vote that forced me out. I hit play. Callista's voice came through, loud and clear. Marer's smart, sure, but she's too loyal to push back. That's why I'll win. Mom and Dad know it. She still believes loyalty matters. The silence that followed hit harder than her words. Not anger, not yet. Just a slow, quiet grief. I hovered over the delete button, then stopped. Instead, I saved the file, dragged it into a new folder, and labeled it Contingency Exposure. Then I made another cup of coffee. My hands weren't shaking anymore. I logged into the family trust portal, access they'd forgotten to revoke. The revocation of power of attorney was uploaded, stamped, active. With a single click, Callista's authority was gone. The satisfaction I felt wasn't revenge, it was clarity. That evening, I put on the charcoal blazer I hadn't touched in over a year. In my bag, my laptop, a USB, the revocation, and that voice recording, now on a labeled disc in red marker. Before zipping the bag, I sent an email to myself. Subject, only if she forgets. Attachment, Callista, voicemail, MP3. Then I passed by the hallway mirror. I didn't look erased anymore. I looked like someone who remembered who she was. An hour later, I stepped out of my car at the charity gala Callista had organized like a royal affair. Her name was on everything. The banners, the programs, the donor wall. Langston Legacy, a night of impact. The valet did a double take. I wasn't on the guest list, didn't matter. Inside, chandeliers sparkled, guests in designer gowns and sharp tuxedos clinked glasses, smiling too wide, speaking too softly. I moved through the crowd unnoticed at first. Then heads turned. A few double takes, hollow smiles. But Callista, she froze. Just for a second. Then she slipped into character, smooth and composed. The perfect hostess. She took the mic, eyes skimming the room, then pausing on me. We built Langston and Vale on legacy, on trust, on knowing when to lead and when to step back. Her gaze sharpened. Some of us learn that better than others. Laughter trickled politely through the room. I raised my glass. Our eyes locked. I didn't smile kindly. I smiled, the kind of smile that made people uneasy, the kind that said, "You missed something." I didn't stay long. As I passed the coat check, I walked right past her. Her smile faltered. She said nothing. But I could feel it. The panic building behind her calm. Behind the curtain, her voice rose. "What do you mean access denied? That accounts under my name." A pause. "What do you mean it's been revoked? Who authorized this?" Moments later, she stormed out of the ballroom, heels striking fast and loud. A board member intercepted her gently. "It's been filed. Effective this morning. We were notified." I didn't wait to see the rest. I knew exactly how the collapse would sound. Outside, the air was cool, the sky clear. I took my time walking to the car. But I wasn't shocked when I heard her behind me. "You think this is over?" Callista snapped. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." I turned, calm. "Then I guess we both have something to regret." "You can't beat me," she hissed. "I was chosen. You? You were a placeholder." She stepped forward, anger burning in her voice. I stepped aside. "Have a pleasant evening, Callista." Back home, everything was still. I changed, poured a glass of water. Then I saw the front door, scratched like someone had tried to break in. My mailbox was dented. Security footage showed a figure by my car. No face, no license plate, nothing stolen. Just enough to unsettle. Upstairs, I sat in the dark. Let the silence hold me. Then I played the voicemail again. She won't fight. She never does. That's why I win. I let it play a second time. Then a third. Finally, I whispered, "Let's change that." 2 days later, I parked a block from the West Ridge Community Center. Callista's Mercedes was already out front. Checked my bag. The envelope was there, notarized. Final. I entered quietly. Her voice echoed through the hall. As acting trustee, I've streamlined Phase 1 of the Lenzen Riverfront project. I walked calmly to the front and handed the envelope to the board chair. Whispers spread as he opened it. Callista turned, caught off guard. She plastered on a smile. "Well, look who finally decided to show up." I said nothing. Took a seat in the back. The chair scanned the document, passed it down. He cleared his throat. "Before we proceed, this revocation impacts the standing of certain decisions. We'll pause for legal review." Callista's smile slipped. "This is just theatrics," she said too loudly. "It's not official." But her pitch had climbed, and just like that, the room no longer belonged to her. "It's notarized," the chairman said calmly. "We'll wait for counsel." For the first time in a long time, Callista blinked. She looked around, but there was no backup left. I didn't wait to hear the whispers. I left before they could gather breath. Still, as I passed through the lobby, I caught a sharp murmur. I thought she was gone for good. I didn't flinch, just kept walking. That night, I met Trina at a quiet little cafe on the north side, string lights above, soft acoustic guitar in the air. She was already there, nestled in a corner booth, coffee steaming in one hand and her tablet glowing in the other. "You're subtle," she said with a smile, "but precise." "Surgical," I replied. "Surgical leaves a scar." She tapped the screen gently. "Everything's ready. The transfers, the board minutes, even the signature you never gave. If you go public, it's going to shake foundations." I stared into my coffee. "I haven't decided yet." Trina met my eyes. "You helped me when no one else would. I won't push, but I'll be ready when you are." I nodded, slowly. People love a comeback, but they love the fire even more. On the drive home, Fleetwood Mac's Landslide played. Mom's favorite. I could almost hear her voice, soft and worn. "Let her shine, mirror. It's her turn." "Was never a turn," I whispered back. "It was a sentence." Back home, I opened a drawer I hadn't touched in years. Inside, wrapped in fading floral cloth, was the original ledger, the one Callista had always claimed was lost. I never corrected her. I picked up my phone, dialed Trina. "I'm ready." That night I combed through every scribbled receipt, every note in my handwriting. Proof that I was always there, behind the scenes. Not a ghost, but the architect. Atabwan. 6:04 a.m., Trina's text lit up my screen. "It's live." The article dropped like a stone into still water. The Silent Founder, What Really Happened at Langston and Vale. It wasn't just a story, it was a reckoning. Evidence-backed, crystal clear, founding documents with my name beside Callista's glamour shots, internal emails, charts, receipts. By midday my inbox was buzzing. Darius, a former intern. I always knew something didn't add up. Elena, one of our first clients. "You were always the quiet one, but I saw you. If you build again, I'm in." Then came the message I didn't expect. From McClory at Everglen Capital. "Mira, let's talk next steps." I was pouring coffee when the phone rang. I didn't need to check who it was. "You vindictive witch." Callista screamed. "You think they'll see you as a victim? You're pathetic. I built this." I said nothing, just tapped end. By afternoon, her legal team fired off a cease and desist, accused me of defamation. They attached documents to prove Callista's exclusive leadership. But one file stopped me cold. A 2019 grant proposal. Her prized evidence. On page 6, a forged ledger, the same one she used to erase me, the one she swore I signed. Only now. She submitted it in an official legal filing. She had no idea. I still had the original. That evening, I met with Mr. Long, my attorney, in a cramped office above a florist on Belmont. He thumbed through the papers, then looked at me over his glasses. "You just handed us the whole case," he said. I nodded. She thought she was untouchable. He smiled, sharp and certain. Not anymore. For the first time in years, I didn't feel erased. I felt real. The next day, Trina's exposé hit national syndication. Not front page, but loud enough to shake the trees. And shake them it did. Later I drove past the old business park where it all began. Most offices were dark, but one suite glowed, my old one, now rented by an architect who respected what Langston and Vale once stood for. He let me in. The desk was gone, but Dad's old pine chair still sat in the corner, smooth from years of use. ML carved into the back slat. I rested my hand on it for so long. I felt like a visitor in a legacy I helped build, but not anymore. Tonight I wasn't a placeholder. I was the author. That night, I didn't sleep. Not from fear, from readiness. 2 weeks later, I stood outside the courtroom, shoulders back, steady breath. Inside, Callista sat like a queen at court, composed, aloof, her lawyer flipping through files. Too late. The judge's voice rang. "Clear. We've reviewed the plaintiff's documents. There are inconsistencies between Miss Langston's version and the original ledger." He looked straight at her. "Submitting forged documents is not an oversight. It's a criminal offense." "No." Cass, just silence. Callista didn't flinch. Her lawyer leaned in, frantic. She didn't move. The judge continued. "This matter will be referred for criminal review under Penal Code 115. Financial restitution will be awarded to the defendant." It was over. Outside, cameras clicked, reporters shouted. I didn't say a word. I walked past them, calm, chin high. The truth had already spoken. That afternoon, I met Trina near her office. We sat by the window, ceramic mugs in hand. "Do you regret any of it?" she asked. I thought about the long nights, the missed holidays, the press releases that conveniently left my name out. I thought about pretending not to care, just to keep the peace. "No," I said. "I don't regret the trial, or Callista. I regret thinking I needed their permission to matter." Trina didn't say anything, just nodded slowly. That evening, I returned to the studio, a co-working space I helped build with 2 other women. One forced out by her husband. The other told she didn't look global enough. No marble floors, no suits, just warm light, real plants, and purpose. My corner was simple, a corkboard, a laptop, and a window facing east. Dad's chair polished, and waiting. I'd fastened a plaque to the back. To the one who stayed silent, then spoke the loudest. I didn't cry. Just sat. Let it settle. This wasn't revenge. This was reclamation. As I looked out at the street, at the slow, quiet movement of people chasing dreams, I felt something rare. Stillness, not silence. Not surrender. Stillness. That night, I emailed Trina. "If they reach out again, tell them I've said everything I needed to." Then I recorded a voice note, something to return to if I ever forget. Sometimes justice doesn't roar. It arrives, softly, in a courtroom, an old chair, a new beginning. I leaned back. Let the moment echo. Then I whispered, "Have you ever had to walk away from something you built, just to save yourself?" If any of that resonated with you, share your thoughts below. Not just for me, but for anyone who's ever been overlooked, underestimated, or told they didn't belong in the room they helped build. Your voice matters. Tell your story. Share your truth. Because silence isn't strength. Truth is. And the most powerful thing you can do is speak.